By the way, if we were Zoom bomb, you should shut the meeting down, Jamie.
Okay, yeah, we were talking about that today of just immediately cut everything off.
Correct. That is the fastest, best way to stop it.
We can all resume somehow. But
Yeah.
President Wyman, I will let you know that those in attendance who registered for the meeting are on this evening. This meeting is being recorded at this time.
Okay, thank you. Call to order Borough Council Workshop Meeting of March 3rd, 2021. And we'll start with the roll call.
President Wyman,
Here.
Vice President Cresser,
Here.
Councilmember Delizio,
Here.
Councilmember Ferguson,
Here.
Councilmember Stevens,
Here.
Mayor Kaler,
Present.
Andrew DeFinis.
Here.
Thank you. Okay. Had this evening's agenda that was presented earlier. There was a couple attachments that were since added, but not material to the agenda itself as far as changing language, other than item 10B on that motion, which now includes the recommended contractor and the amount. So I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Council President, we will have a change to 10A. That is to be tabled. I don't know if that's on the revised agenda. 10A regarding 43 Roosevelt Avenue. We have not yet received the Montgomery County Planning Commission review letter.
Okay, so we'll make that recommendation when we reach that item, but thanks for the update there. So there was a motion by Councilor Cresser and a second by Councilor Stevens.
Well, that
Anyone
wasn't
else
me,
with-
but
I'm sorry, it wasn't?
it wasn't me, but I'm not sure.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Who was it?
I'll second it.
It was Sal.
Okay, thanks, Sal. Sorry.
All right.
Okay, any other changes or additions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion's approved. Next item, second category is public input. Anyone wishing to address council, please state your name and address.
President Wyman, I can see that Mr. Wilcox has his hand raised. Mr. Wilcox, you now have the floor.
Wilcox.
He's on mute. There we go.
No.
Oh, I think we just lost him.
Okay, I will see if he comes back to the waiting room and then I will let him in. I could notice he was going between mute and unmute, so maybe he hit the hang up button by accident. Here he comes
Hey,
back
let's-
into the waiting room. He's being admitted to the meeting right now.
Very good.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're good. Good.
Yes?
Yes,
Yes.
okay, go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. Sorry about that. And I apologize for the misunderstanding earlier. But I want to comment tonight about the discussion item regarding the sewer lateral inspection program. Reading through it, I think it's just a pretty big burden on borough homeowners, specifically when they go to sell their home. It just adds an additional step and in my mind burden to that, especially in today's market where homes are put up for sale and offers come flying in, something like this could seriously, hinder a borough homeowner, from proceeding with an otherwise, uneventful sale. I think that, there's got to be bigger fish to fry, with regards to infiltration than, perhaps groundwater seeping into a 4-inch, lateral. I believe that certainly if there's, a bigger issue with the lateral, such as it's cracked or broken, I mean, the homeowner is going to be aware of that because they're going to have issues with their sewer, indoor sewer. And that would be disclosed on seller's property disclosure, if they, abide by, proper whatever. So again, I just want to share my thoughts on that because I do think in today's real estate environment, that would be a pretty big burden on borough homeowners specifically. I know Manager DeFinis mentioned that Hatfield Township had the same ordinance. I couldn't find it. I mean, perhaps they do, but I honestly couldn't find anywhere else locally that has a similar ordinance, unless I'm just searching the wrong keywords. But thank you.
Okay, thanks for the comments. Anyone else, Jamie?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. We do have a full discussion on the sewer lateral, of course, in the agenda, so we can all weigh in on that. Okay, item 3 are announcements, Mr. DeFinis.
Okay. So next Borough Council meeting, March 17th, the regular meeting at 7:30 via Zoom. Registration is required. The Hatfield Museum and Historical Society scheduled to meet Tuesday, March 23rd via their live Facebook feed. HERC is scheduled to meet Wednesday, March 24th at 8 a.m. via Zoom. Registration is required. And the Planning Commission is scheduled to meet on April 5th at 7 p.m. via Zoom and or in person via Zoom meeting. Registration is required.
Okay. Anyone have any other dates to highlight at this time? Okay. We'll continue with our reports from the committee chairs and mayor. Anyone have information to share with council this evening? Turn to the under public safety, the police reports in the packet. I don't know that it was really a jinx or not compared to the last couple months when we commented things were quiet, but
It was
obviously a little more activity in the last reporting period.
Yeah,
A lot more.
we definitely were more busy, that's for sure.
Anybody have specific questions for the lieutenant?
If you have no questions, I'll just make a comment. I want to thank Jane and the department for handling just an issue with a resident. And the resident was very grateful for the way that the police department handled it. And thank you very much for their courtesy, their cooperation, and their professionalism. So I know that sometimes we don't hear good things, but that was a very positive thing that was conveyed by one of our families here in the borough today.
We're happy to help out.
Great, thank you. All right. Any other reports? I have a suggestion under Public Works as we get ready to begin the curb and sidewalk and paving projects. If it's on your list already, glad to hear it, but I think we're gonna have to revisit the sidewalk markings and get your white spray paint or whatever color you like to use this time around to address those things before much longer, now that the snow's off the sidewalks.
I just had a conversation with Jamie, I think it was yesterday or the day before, about that exact topic.
Okay, terrific. I thought as much. Okay. Nothing else come to mind. We'll continue with our manager's reports.
Okay, in the packet was the manager's report, and I'll just hit on a couple of the highlights. Edinburgh Square, still nothing going on with the weather. I'm not even sure if the developer is back in town. Bennett's Court, staff met with the representatives from Bennett's Court yesterday in a meeting and worked out some of the details on the plan that they're going to submit. They're probably going to get us a plan in here, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. They won't be ready for the April Planning Commission meeting, so they're shooting for the May Planning Commission meeting with Bennett's Court. The 40, you know about the 43 Garfield. We're waiting for the review letter from Montgomery County Planning Commission. 127 Penn is still, they're still out there. They're in development stages, but I did receive a call today that the house is still under agreement and the developer is trying to come up with a plan that he can submit to the borough. And the borough, the SEPTA property, I'm not sure if I conveyed last time, but we now have keys for the SEPTA property to get in both buildings. And we have that license agreement for 6 months. Utility billing, there was a glitch in the system. They introduced some new technology to the system because of the polyphase meters, which prevented David from making his producing his bills on time. They worked out the glitch, rewrote, excuse me, rewrote part of the program and got it to work. They're coming up with a final patch for that communication. The bills did go out a couple days late because of that. The electric portal's up and running. As you know, on projects, the East Lincoln Avenue Bridge bid opening was conducted on February 25th, and you have a recommendation letter in your packets tonight. The ADA ramps have been reviewed and awarded, and a notice to proceed was issued to the contractor today. Roadway resurfacing bid is scheduled to be open on March 11th, and stormwater projects will continue as the borough's Public Works Department workload permits. The PMBA website is live, and they have a news section on there, so you may want to check that out as well. So a couple other things that I wanted to make sure that you were aware of is the rice peaking project. A lot of the fiber optic for that has been drawn into the borough office and also taken down to the PPL connection site. And the next step will be to run it down Dane Avenue back to where the connection will be for the generator. On the AMI project, the meter updates, letters went out last week alerting residents and business owners and apartment owners that the next gen will be in around March 16th, excuse me, March 16th to install the last batch of meters that has to be installed to complete that transition from the old meters to the new meters. Ed Young will be on standby during the installation of polyphase meters should we need his help with jumping out any CTs. There was a HERC update attached in your packets. The PSAB annual conference is scheduled for June 7th and 8th. That will be virtual this year. Also, items of interest I wanted to bring to your attention. PSAB has an Inside Pennsylvania. It's like a podcast and Borough News on their website. And I sat through a couple of them recently. Very good, very well done. And the one about how COVID has impacted municipalities and how we had all change the way we operate going forward was very well done. And looking to the future, the comments they're eye-opening for all of us. The Lincoln Avenue Bridge facade sample is in your packets there. That's what the bridge is going to look like when it's done. They'll have that texture to the facade of it. And then the last item was the something we discussed at the last meeting that President Wireman put his hands on that I didn't have in front of me at the time was the Hatfield Borough borrowing base certificate that comes with the loan process that we just went through, and it explains what the borough's borrowing capabilities are. So I know that was a question that was a concern, and this is how it was derived. So that's what I have for anyone. If anybody has any questions, I can take them.
Mike, I have 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
On the AMI update, you specify 2 separate systems. One system is for residential, one system for business. Is that it?
No, we're operating on 2 systems, the new system, the AMI system, and the old handheld system for those 300 meters that weren't installed yet.
Okay. Yeah. Now, the second question, with the new meters, has there any problems arrived? With,
Yeah, there's been a
residents?
couple. There's been a couple glitches. One meter failed already and went back for replacement. And then there was some reading issues. And then we ran into an internal glitch where 140 some meters came in as notified as being turned back on, but they were never off. So there was an email. We get an email notification when a meter goes down, when power goes out on the property. Well, meter was returned, or electricity was returned, but it actually never was off. So there's a glitch in that system that's reading the meters. Are they on? Are they off? So they're looking at that as well. We put in a ticket for that item as well. So yeah, there are some glitches, some internal glitches, but we're working them out as they come up. Does that answer your question, Sal?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else for manager? Not. Next item, item 6 on the agenda is our assistant manager's report.
Okay, thank you. So my report was in your packets. The first item I have for discussion is the LCAP Steering Committee request letter, which was attached. This letter has come from the Montgomery County Consortium of Communities. That's the group that I am president of. This is actually from one of my executive board members, Brandon Ford. They're just looking for elected officials to volunteer for an an LCAP steering committee, and that is a local climate change action plan. What they're doing is gathering information of how greenhouse gas emissions can affect climate change at the local level. It's all getting ready for the movement, the Ready for 100 movement, where we're all municipalities in Montgomery County are going greener. This is just one of the committees that is derived from that. We're going to be working with the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. We're going to be working with Montgomery County Planning Commission. If environmental is your thing, I'm just asking if you're interested in being on the steering committee to please let me know so I can pass that information on to Mr. Ford at Springfield Township. Next was Mike and I met.
Jamie, just,
Yeah.
I just want to highlight in the
Yeah.
letter where it says that they're suggesting that last paragraph that there'll be monthly meetings for the spring and early summer. And at that time, it should be completed. So it's not a overbearing commitment, we'll call it. If anybody would be interested in serving some time there as necessary to develop climate discussion as they want to address. I just thought, I have to comment. I loved reading that first paragraph and seeing all the acronyms and then having to go back and, oh, now what's that one mean? And what's this one mean? What's that one mean? Thought they really outdid themselves there, putting all those in there.
Yeah, it's that so you can definitely tell it's written by a manager or assistant manager where we all say RCAP, LCAP, DVRPC, MPC.
Very
But
good.
yeah, I will say it's the two gentlemen, Brandon and Sean, who have taken this under their wing, are excellent, and it's very detail oriented. We're hoping to have some first results at a meeting we're going to have in May, and then by the end of the year, wrap it up and be able to present our final plan. So again, like President Wireman mentioned, it's not that much of a commitment, and if environment thing, please let me know and I can let Brandon know. We're looking for members and alternate members too as well. So
Thank you.
sure. I wanted to mention that Mike and I attended a 309 connector route meeting hosted by Representative Malagary. I believe it was Thursday last week. They gave some really great updates on the connector route, spoke about the phase 2, the HD2, hoping to start construction late summer, they think. Then we spoke about phase 3, where that connection is going to come in on Hatfield South Pike area out to where I would call where Biggie's is, where the new CHOP location is going to be located in Hatfield Township. I wanted to share this website. It's the Connector Route website with you because I think they did a great job of pointing out maps, pointing out what the phases are going to be, and addressing a lot of questions that I think a lot of municipal managers and local elected officials have on this is going to be huge for our community, with the truck traffic and everything. So some things were brought up about detour routes, detouring truck traffic, keeping it out of the borough. Mike was on top of them. So hopefully it'll keep the trucks off our streets. But I wanted to let you know, if you have a chance, please check out the website. It's at PA309connector.com. I think they do a great job of outlining what we're hoping to see in the future and what this project can bring to our community and surrounding communities. Also, today, actually, myself and the other municipal managers in the county, I believe there was 40 of us on the call, met with Commissioner Arkush and their chief operating officer at the county. We spoke to them about the COVID-19 vaccines and the distribution plan for Montgomery County. The phasing, the 1A, the 1B, how to facilitate calls for residents. Residents call and they ask, where can I get my shot? Where can I sign up? I think there's just been not a lot of information that we've been able to pass on to our residents and our elected officials. So the commissioner took 45 minutes out of her afternoon and had a Zoom call with all of us. Very, very informative. They have or will be providing us with a lot of material, flyers, things we can put on our websites to help residents know where they can call and how they can get help if they don't have access to internet. A big issue that we've been running into is residents that don't have emails or elderly residents that don't have access to internet and they're having an issue signing up. And also with getting transportation to vaccination sites if they are on the list and able to be vaccinated. So all this information was great, provided by the county, and be sending this over to us so we can post it on our website, post it on our social media. We can even post it on the bulletin board, just to get our residents more familiar with the process and to let them know that the county is doing the best that they can with the vaccines that they're provided. Unfortunately, you may have seen a recent article in the newspaper where it talks about Montgomery County's population being 2% in Pennsylvania, but we might be 26 on the list of how many vaccines we were actually have been provided. And another municipality in Pennsylvania might be 64th population size, and they're number one of receiving vaccines. So there's definitely been some miscommunication from the DOH in Pennsylvania to the counties, and they're working through that. And rest assured, she said, like, they are working, they're making calls, and they're also talking that they are dissatisfied with the way that the county is being treated. So they are standing up for us and for our residents. So I wanted to reiterate that to all of you. And us in the office will do our best to get that information out to the residents. Last time I gave an update on the PEMA grant. I wanted to let you know we were awarded the $4,959.04. We should be receiving a check in the mail shortly for that amount. I did place in your packets the statement of financial interest forms. Please note that those are due back to the borough office by May 1st. And finally, Lindsay included a really nice update on our website, status that's going on. She stated it's coming along nicely. I believe she got to talk to President Wyman a little bit about it. If anyone has any input, please email her and let her know. And also hopefully by next week at the meeting, I can give an update on when we should be scheduled for the photos that we're going to be taking for the website, and also possibly for badges for the borough office. So that's all for my report. If anybody has any questions at this time.
Excuse me, Jamie,
Yeah,
on the number 2, the 309
yeah,
connector route.
yep.
You said there might be a report, updated report on that project.
Yeah, so they did, and members from Penndot and their team have been updating that website. So that's brand new. They relaunched that website. I think they made a couple updates to it, and that's where they list the phases. If that's something you'd like to see, I can get that printed out for you and delivered, or I can include it in the packet. If
Yeah,
you're interested in seeing, it gives.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, yep, sure, no problem. I'll take care of that.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Thanks for attending all this, Jamie, and providing the recaps. I know you've said numerous times that being busy, adding another 1 or 2 items just keeps you that schedule going. So somehow
All in
you
a
find
good
a way
day,
to get it done, and we certainly appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Sure, no problem.
Just to let you all know, Jamie and I were double booked on that Thursday. We had 2 actual Zoom meetings at the same time simultaneously. One regarding the connector road and one regarding the American Public Power AMPS presentation prior to the American Public Power virtual meeting that was held this week. So Jamie focused on one and I focused on the other, while both were playing on both of our pieces of equipment here. So the connector road that website, we're gonna get out to the masses as well on our social media and our newsletters and HTV, everywhere we can, to keep everyone aware of that, what's going on with that connector road. But Jamie did a great job on participating in that meeting as well.
Terrific. Okay. Everybody ready to go into new business and discussion? 7A is our feral cat ordinance update on chapter 2 of animals.
So this is in your packets because there's been a concern of feral cats and the feeding of feral cats and not maintaining them. There's one section of town where there's about 40 feral cats now have taken over a neighborhood, and one individual is feeding them but not maintaining them. So those cats are finding their way into people's garages, cars, sheds, and doing some damage to some private property. So it was brought to our attention. We did the research on, Kate did helped out with the ordinance. We looked at several other municipalities and how they addressed the issue, and that's what you have in front of you tonight as a draft.
Okay, open it up for questions. The definition of a sponsor: organization appointed by Borough of Hatfield to run the trap, neuter, and return program. Maybe it's too early to discuss that, but is there more than one organization that might be eligible to handle this type of thing?
I would say, I know of one, but I think maybe Lieutenant Jane might be the best person to answer this. She's familiar with such organizations from her work in the township.
Well, we used to make contact with Stray Cat Blues.
Right.
I'm not sure if they're still actively doing that or not, but that was the main one that we would go to. We've had in the past, we haven't had it recently, but in the past we have had some feral cat colonies where they've come in and done that.
There was another one in Bluebell called Kitty Cottage, I believe, or something like that. And they might be available, but you know, we'd have to ask them and see if they would be willing to do it. And if we already have the issue, maybe we should contact them now and see if they have any advice.
The SPCA may be able to direct you to a county organization as well.
Lieutenant Jane, this is John. Question for you, please. Do they have fees for that? Like Stray Cat Blues or Kitty Cottage, when they come out?
They had never charged us, that I know. I don't know. I don't believe they do. I believe they're all nonprofits, so they come out and this is what they do.
Okay. So they pick up the cats and then take care of business and then bring them back?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
They clip their ears so that they know that they've been neutered.
Is this ordinance something Borough Council wants to pursue? Because we would need to advertise it and, you know, have a hearing.
I think with the size of the colony that exists, it's probably something that should be included in the ordinance package, yes.
Yes.
If it's never used, all the better, but it sounds like it'll probably be utilized.
All right, well then, should I get a legal ad ready and for a future meeting?
For
Yeah,
hearing,
we can we can put it on, excuse me, you put it on Kate to advertise at the next meeting, permission to advertise next meeting.
Okay.
And-
And in the meantime, maybe we should check with Stray Cat Blues or the SPCA about how they feel about this, you know, and whether they'd be willing to help us with the colony we already have.
yes, good.
And also a question, I guess, for Mike. Are the other towns or townships doing this also locally? Or do they already have programs involved now?
Yeah, yes, we actually visited other municipalities to draft the ordinance.
Oh, okay.
We visited their ordinances.
Well, what I had in the back of my mind was if everybody's doing it at one time, Stray Cat's gonna be overloaded, you know? Or perhaps, or something like that. So if we're ahead of the game, chances are to be willing to help us versus dealing with a bunch of municipalities or boroughs, or, you know what I'm saying?
Well, the ordinance actually makes the person feeding the animals responsible for the health and welfare of the animal.
Kate,
Yes.
I've got two things, one of which might be overboard, but in today's world, bottom of page 2 of this draft, section 5-503, running at large.
Yes.
Second sentence says, owned by him or under his supervision.
You want me to
Is-
make that neutral, gender neutral?
Yeah, I was thinking them and their,
Yeah, we could do that. Sure.
okay. Next page, again, last paragraph, 5-506. No person other than a person actually working a dog or walking a dog. Is working, I thought maybe that was appropriate, but wasn't positive.
Walking.
Yeah, why don't we make it walking? And I'm not sure we have any agricultural purposes in the borough anyway, although technically every municipality in the state's supposed to allow some kind of farming.
And then this isn't a correction, just a question. Next page, 5-509, part A, talks about registering with the animal control officer.
Well,
Is that-
I would ask the lieutenant that. Don't you have somebody on the force who's designated as that?
No.
You don't have anybody at all?
There's a contract out that we do there's an animal control officer that covers various municipalities. And he just charges us per, if he has to pick up a dog.
Okay, so I guess maybe we'd have to hire that person. Why don't we, if you could provide the information to Mike and Jamie, maybe we ought to look and see how much that's going to cost, John.
Okay,
Because I really can't picture anybody presently on staff taking care of this.
good.
Why don't we see if we can get answers to some of these questions by the next meeting to see whether this ordinance is in fact ready to advertise.
Advertise, right? Sounds good.
So, sorry, one additional question I have is kind of what's the process by which someone would report an issue, and then what would the township police do when they receive that report?
Regarding the colony of cats?
Yes, yes. So basically, it says that they can't be on property. So does a property owner call you? Do you do an investigation to see is someone feeding the cat? I mean, how does that work?
We usually do not handle anything cat related. That's by law, we have to do dog for the dog running at large. For cats, we do not usually, we don't have the facilities to take them. We don't have, now if it's a ordinance, we can certainly explain to the person what the ordinance is. But we don't take any action as far as removing the cats or any other type of intervention like that.
We do have a code enforcement officer in the borough.
Correct. And the code enforcement officer would be the one that would administer the citation for violating the ordinance.
And that person would do the investigation to determine if somebody's feeding the animal or providing shelter for it in any way, to figure out where its ownership comes from?
They would have to, yes.
There's also the possibility that a neighbor complains that, so-and-so's got a bunch of cats running all around because she's feeding them. I've seen that happen.
That's usually how we get that.
Okay, I think as suggested, we'll have some more discussion and a couple answers, hopefully by the next meeting, and then we can decide whether it's appropriate to advertise or keep it on for further discussion at future meetings.
Okay.
Okay. Continue with item B, which is the sewer lateral repair ordinance, chapter 18.
So this ordinance, and if I conveyed that Hatfield Township had adopted it, they have not. They're considering it as well. And it was a discussion between Hatfield Borough and Hatfield Township with Hatfield Township Municipal Authority. We make, as you know, the Hatfield Township itself does not maintain the sewer system in the township. Their municipal authority does. So they have made great strides over the years replacing sewer mains and repairing their system, as well as the borough has done for many years, worked on its system. And as a matter of fact, next year is going to, again, be doing major repairs to its system on North Main Street and other locations. So during a discussion with our engineering group that is always tasked with what is the best way to reduce the I&I, we can make all the connections and all the repairs to our system that we want. We have 60, 70-year-old pipes in the ground on residential properties that haven't been addressed in that time frame, 60, 70, 50, 40 years. The equipment that the technology that went into the ground 70 years ago is a lot different than the technology that goes into the ground today, the equipment, the materials. So it's sort of, we're doing everything we can to reduce the I&I in our sewer mains. Probably half of the I&I is coming from private property, either the laterals or the connections to our system. They haven't been, as I said, they haven't been touched, many of them. I know, my house was built in 1954. It's been snaked out and jetted out a couple times in the last 35 years. Hasn't been repaired. The reason it had to be snaked out and jetted out is because roots grow into the lateral, into the system. We've run into the system where trees were growing on properties next door and were growing into laterals on their next door neighbor's property. So, so laterals are a major part of the I&I problem. So that was the reason for this ordinance, the drafting of this ordinance. Now, Kate did a very good job, in my opinion, of looking out of where we had it, how we had to address it, and where to put it. So this is what's in front of you for consideration, but we're doing everything we can on our sewer mains and the laterals up to the right of way. It's on the private property where we haven't addressed the issue. Now, on East School Street, a couple of years back, we replaced the sewer main and we gave the residents the option to have their laterals repaired and their cleanouts all replaced with modern technology. We would pay for it and they would pay us back over a 12-month period. I think it was 12 residents took advantage of that. That's what we're looking for when we do projects like this, that the residents take advantage of that opportunity. And if they don't, we're going to have to do something to address these laterals. And this was the mechanism that we came up with.
So may I add something? Historically, the borough was asked to reduce I&I infiltration and inflow going into the sewer system, because when it rains, there would be a huge flow from the borough towards the Hatfield Township sewer system where we have our sewage treated. So at the time, they were having problems with DEP because the plant was getting overloaded, not just by the borough, but also by the township's infiltration and inflow. And at that time, the borough agreed to spend a certain amount of money every year for 5 years. And the idea would be to go around to all the mains in the borough and first televise them, second, see if you got a problem, and third, repair the problem. And we actually did that for at least 5 years, if not longer, right, Mike?
Yes, we did.
So we got to the point where we had really done a good job on the pipes that we own. The pipes that didn't get any attention were the homeowners' pipes. So we thought we would entice them. If we were doing the main in their street, we would offer them, hey, you want to be part of this, we'll televise your lateral and let you know if you got a problem. And we found that the residents, for the most part, didn't want to do it. So the thought was, and there are other townships that have ordinances like this that check for code violations when you do a sale. I think Plymouth Township has this ordinance or something similar. And the idea would be, if you're selling your house, you could pay for it out of the proceeds of the sale, and it's not as onerous as if we just show up on the borough's schedule for fixing the main in your street and say, hey, do you want to spend a couple $1,000s fixing your lateral? And so this was another way to get at that at a time. To Mr. Wilcox's point about, is it fair to do it on a sale? It was thought that it was fairer than doing it, while you're still living there and while you might not have the cash. So, I mean, I think that's kind of the idea behind this. We have to find some way to make sure that the laterals are not contributing to the infiltration and inflow problem once we've taken care of the mains, which belong to us. Fair enough, Mike?
Yes.
And I think it would be fair to maybe get some additional background and history from any other municipalities that have instituted programs such as this, and see how the reaction's been. I'm sure the realtors, no doubt, have fair comments about it if it is being enforced in other municipalities. Kate, you drew this with the township's cooperation. You both did it jointly.
Mike actually gave me this as a draft, and I think it was the same one that the township's working on, isn't it, Mike?
Yes. The township
Mike-
provided me with their draft and I passed it along to Kate.
And I took it, looked at our current ordinances and slotted it into the chapter where I thought it would fit best.
Okay.
We actually do have a property inspection before sale, don't we, Mike? I think
We do, but it does not address this issue.
Right, but I mean, the realtor should already be aware that we check for things, you know?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And the other problem is a lot of the housing stock in the borough is older.
Yeah, I guess main thought that came to my mind was, it's one thing if you have to put in a smoke detector or, put in a fire rated door. This type of work obviously could take a little more time. So I think the issue, under agreement of sale for a seller and a buyer. And again, as Mr. Wilcox indicated, today's market, there's some fast transactions for cash coming down. What timeframes do we put on this? And be able to get turnarounds that are going to be necessary. I don't want to be breaking agreements that people have put together.
Right. The borough could agree to escrow the money at closing. That would satisfy it.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, the seller would be finished with their obligation except for any return of the escrow, and the buyer could still get the certificate of occupancy and move in.
Yeah. Overall time frame of getting the work done at such time as the borough would get the report back, or the township gets the report back. I think it's fair to put in here what our responsibilities are for turnaround time. How long are we going to say that we're going to respond once the report's received, so that at least the people know, it's acceptable, not acceptable, what's going on. I think there's got to be some burden on us to have a time frame scheduled here.
Well, are we doing the inspection? I think we are, right?
No,
No.
it says that it can be outsourced and the work outsourced.
Right.
As a general rule, how long does it usually take once they would televise that, and for somebody to come back to somebody? Is it days or is it a couple weeks or?
Usually when it's televised, usually can get the jump drive with the video that day.
Mike, do we have a contractor that we could call? I mean, I know we've done this in the past, but do we have a contractor we could call quickly to do it?
Yeah, what in looking at this, that it's just a draft, we can do what we do with our electric system. We do the same thing, is have a list of contractors that would be authorized to do this type of work, and you could do it annually. You could, or as we do it every 2 years, authorize people to be a preferred contractor or a preferred vendor on the borough's list, as we do now with our electric. And the other thing is, if they don't want to use that contractor, they can utilize their own. But it has to be a licensed contractor.
So-
And that's for the televising.
Yes.
Right.
So do those same contractors would then offer to do the work also? They all would do work?
The companies that do the televising, the reason they do the televising is to get the work.
Get to work. Yeah, I think that's definitely something that's got to be included. As you just said, that was something I jotted down, approved contractors and a list.
And
So,
and our code department does the same thing with the underwriters. They have a list of underwriters to do the underwriting inspection for electric when it's done. So we can develop that. We already have the template here.
And I could make it explicit that the borough could agree to an escrow held at closing in the event the work can't be completed by then.
Right.
Mike, is it the people that do the televising, is there, I guess their opinions certified or something, correct? Is there some kind of a qualification for them when they make a decision that they're not just drumming up business for themselves, or there's, I guess, as a bonding or something? Would it be?
Well, they're all, it would be we would only hire licensed plumbers, number
Right.
one, all right? And we have the right to check their background. If they're gonna be a contractor for the borough, as we do with our contractors for our electric system, as we do with the contractors who trim our trees and the contractors who do the electric underwriting, all right? But I, and not trying to make this too simple, but the pictures are worth 1,000 words. Once they
Right.
televise these laterals, you're gonna know if they're failing or not. All right, you're gonna see the cracks and the holes and the breaks and the separations in pipe, and you're gonna see all that.
Tree roots
Right.
growing through it. You can see-
Exactly.
Yeah.
John, I think maybe what you're referring to is, they're not making the decision of what work has to be done. They're providing us with a report.
Right,
And it's going to be the borough that says X, Y, and Z for code enforcement. Here's what the homeowner is going to have to do. So, yeah, I agree with you. Are they going to say, oh, you got to, this is horrible, you got to do this? It's not their call. It's going to be our call.
well, to add to that, are they certified by the state? Do they have to go through some sort of qualification themselves? Because then somebody else would say, well, that's not my pipe, that was the neighbor's pipe you must have checked out. I mean, is there some kind of a state certification that these televisors do possess, I guess, so they can do their job?
They're licensed plumbers. They've secured their license from the state to be a
Mhm.
plumber, number one.
Right,
All right. Now, to do this work, they have to know how to operate the machinery, and the
Right.
machinery is not cheap. Okay, so they have to be certified, they have to be qualified to operate the machinery. All right. Now,
Right.
if you're concerned about them televising someone else's lateral and handing it to the borough and saying, this lateral is horrible, and it's not, we're gonna be on site when it's done.
no,
I
well,
mean,
I'm not
they
suggesting
have
that.
to, they have to actually take video of the lateral of the property that they're at. They can't hand us a video of someone else's lateral.
Well, I'm
No,
not
that's
suggesting
not gonna
that.
happen.
I'm saying the homeowner's challenging the statement or
Well,
the photo.
the homeowner can be present when it's done. I mean,
Yeah, okay.
we're gonna document the plumber actually being on the site doing the work.
Right,
So I have two questions. The first is, let's walk through the process. So let's say someone gets the lateral scoped and they send us a report to the borough, who then will determine whether repairs need to happen. Now, if I read this statement correctly, any defect is deemed to having to be repaired. Is that a correct statement?
Yes.
So any crack, anything that's found, whether it's actually infiltration or not, the homeowner is then responsible for fixing that.
Yes,
Fix, right.
Okay.
but that's what causes infiltration, these cracks.
No, I understand. So it doesn't have to be infiltration at the time. It's just any evidence that there is any kind of damage, the homeowner is going to be then responsible. So my question then is how do we, or how does the homeowner have control over what repair is done? So for example, as we know, if there's cracks, there are simple things that can be done to seal it versus replacing the whole section of pipe, digging a pipe out, which is a lot more expensive. Who deems what a repair method is acceptable?
The borough, according to the draft ordinance.
Okay.
That-
And if there's a dispute, how is that handled? So for example, if there's a crack and there's a simple way to repair it, but the borough says, no, we want the whole pipe replaced, how is that dispute mitigated?
Well, if I got a call from the code officer and told me that there was such a dispute, I would probably turn to our borough engineer for help. Because they are very familiar with the way the borough's system works and the way sewer works generally. And I would
Mhm.
think that they would be the right guys to mediate such a dispute.
And then is that a cost that the homeowner has to pick up now as part of this?
The
You see
cost
what I'm
of
getting at with the whole
not
question of
usually-
how disputes are then managed.
Right, not usually, because usually we charge for the fee, we charge a fee for the permit. Okay, and that is a fixed fee that you guys set every year by resolution. And that would cover the normal situation. Other than that, you're gonna have to, you'll be paying the engineer to check on that.
Mhm.
Because I would think most of them wouldn't need the engineer. Most of them are gonna be pretty obvious. So your permit fee should cover the work of the code officer or whoever is reviewing it. I think it would be the code officer.
Yeah. But I mean, as Mike knows, as I was saying, if it's a crack or a small hole versus, and you can put a sealer piece in versus having to tear out the whole pipe, there's a significant difference in the cost for those two. So we're not only talking in this instance, the cost to scope it, which is what, several $1,000s. Now we're talking about repairing it as well. So the costs start increasing significantly depending upon the amount of damage.
Right.
I would doubt very much it would cost thousands of dollars to scope a lateral. Several $100s to scope a lateral, but not thousands to videotape a lateral.
Okay.
All right. Lateral repairs can cost up to $5,000. It's a general rule of thumb from the house to the right of way to the main, to the borough's connection. All right. So most of the real estate stock in the borough is probably 50 years old or more. Most of the real estate stock has terracotta pipe as their sewer laterals from the house to the main. There's two kinds of terracotta pipe. Terracotta pipe that's cracked and failing, and terracotta pipe that's gonna crack and fail.
So, no, I understand it. So I guess part of the question is should we in the ordinance, or does it fall under the general ordinance within the borough to deal with questions or disputes?
We can add that as a piece of this legislation. And during codification, Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, can we add that to every section of the ordinance that deals with types like sidewalks? I believe it's already in the electric ordinance, but we can add it to the sewer ordinance as well.
Well, this ordinance currently gives the borough in its discretion, the power to make choices and do things. Now, that's really going to depend on who we put in that slot and what kind of a person they are. I do a lot of work in different townships on both sides of the fence. And some townships are known for having very difficult code enforcement officers or very difficult engineers, and others, don't have that reputation. So, I mean, I think the borough's going to have to choose the right people, as you do now, for these jobs. Also, here's the big picture. At the time the borough agreed to spend a certain amount of money every year on infiltration and inflow, we had the possibility of redeveloping the seminary property into senior housing that would have required more EDUs, we thought, than the seminary was currently using. And the capacity at the sewer plant in the township is affected by how much infiltration and inflow gets into the system, the pipes, and runs through the plant. And so here's the DEP coming down hard on the municipal authority in the township because of overflows at the plant, or potential overflows at the plant. And they're turning around, looking at all their customers, including us, and saying, hey, you got to get a control of this, or we won't have enough capacity in the plant for you to redevelop any, big project, because there just won't be enough EDUs. There won't be enough equivalent dwelling units in the plant. So the big picture is a hard one, and this is sort of aimed at, okay, we've worked on the mains, and now we're trying to figure out whether we can fix the rest of it at a reasonable price that, won't be too onerous on an individual homeowner. Some homeowners have no trouble, for example, repairing their sidewalks. And some really put up a big fight. And that, we're talking there a few $100s, so the feeling was that doing it this way, as the property's changing hands, would give the buyer a house that had a good sewer system and would let the seller pay for it out of the proceeds of the sale. That's the concept.
I think the concept makes sense. So I'm just kind of questioning some of the process. So, for example, if we're going to say that the borough now has responsibility to determine what's done, shouldn't that be on the homeowner? Shouldn't the homeowner present the borough with options based on whatever plumbing source they use who does the scoping?
Yeah, I would think they would. I would think they'd show up and say, hey, if I patch this, will I still be able to get a permit? Here's my plan for 123 Market Street. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Will this work?
Okay, I was under the impression that it was more the borough making that call, not the homeowner.
Well, the borough, under the draft ordinance, the borough has the right to make that call. But the homeowner or his contractor is going to be motivated to get it done to meet the settlement. So they're going to come in and say, hey, this is what we want to do. Will this work? The borough can say yes or no.
This
Now,
is
one
this is
issue we have
DEP
is-
driven. This is basically DEP driven.
Right.
It's, and they're gonna sooner or later, they're gonna come down and say, okay, you have to solve this problem. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
Right. So I guess what I'm asking and trying to make sure of, so it's not the borough telling the plumber how to fix it. It's the plumber defining this is what we recommend, and the borough agreeing with it or not agreeing with it.
Right.
'Cause I
And
see a
that would be a
difference there.
determination that the borough's professionals should do. And that means the engineer.
And then any future problems that exist are still the burden of the new homeowner, right?
Yes, they are.
Okay. I think the best practice would be, what we don't want to get involved in is in the policing of all this stuff. I think Jason's right, I think a little bit on target here as far as letting them prove it to us, their plan, their approach, their plan, and solution, the end result, and then with some kind of a memo for the future, if it was a repair, the possibilities of future problems do exist, and it would be upon the homeowner to inspect at a later, to replace at a later date.
Yeah, to your point, John, the ordinance does say that if it sells again within a year, they don't have to get it re-inspected. You know, meaning that we're going to assume it's okay for at least a year, sorry.
Right.
So,
Well-
so again, sorry, John, go ahead.
Yeah, wouldn't it be important that it was inspected again if they were flipping homes? Because that way, that next person would be protected that was buying the home. We would be helping them. Since we're in the protection business, why wouldn't we want to help the second one?
Right,
If
it
it was
would
a
have
quick
to
flip.
be, it would have to be re-inspected on every other sale, but if you do it within 12 months, I think the ordinance assumes it's still okay and you don't have to go through the expense.
Right.
Maybe we could shorten that, but you know.
Go ahead, Jason. What were you going to say?
So I was gonna say, I mean, going back to the homeowner having control and discretion over this, I don't know if the wording needs to be changed. I mean, how I read it wasn't, I didn't take it that way, and maybe it's just how I was reading it. So I don't know if that's something that,
It's certainly drafted so that the borough has the choice and the discretion, because we don't want any arguments about that. I'm suggesting it's how we handle the practice of it. You know, I think it's, and you know what I mean? And maybe I could massage the language a little bit, but I don't want there to be an argument about, you know, at the end of the day, who gets to say whether the pipe gets replaced or patched? It's got to be the borough. Because the borough doesn't have a financial interest in, you know, that particular homeowner.
I would say it's not the borough making the decision, it's the evidence making the decision
Right,
for the repair
right.
or replacement.
And the seller has an interest in keeping it low. The buyer might have an interest in having it completely repaired or replaced, because after all, they're going to own it, right?
Yeah,
Borough is in a sense neutral, and as John said, using the evidence to make their choice. Of course, I wrote the ordinance to make the borough's position strong. That's what I'm your lawyer. Okay. I
Yeah.
can look at the language, but I did intentionally say the borough gets to make the choice, you know?
right. I think, and I understand where you're coming from. I think, like I said, if it's maybe worded such as final discretion or final approval, I don't know. You know, I may be just splitting hairs here. So yeah, if we can look at that, that'll be good. The other two questions I have is, one is the timing. So we say if the lateral's been replaced within a year, they don't have to do that. Isn't that time period kind of short? Wouldn't we want to extend that out? Because given the age of the property now, properties might need it done, but I'm assuming with modern technology that, you know, we can expect it to last more than 12 months before there's potential for it to become damaged again.
I would agree with that, but Mike, do we think we need to get Chad's opinion on that?
And I just made myself a note to what is the proper time frame for resale reinspection?
Because 12 months may be too short, you know, come to think of it.
And remember, since they're getting a permit to do this work, the borough will do inspections of the work. So, you know, we'll know if it was done properly or not. And, you know, one of the things that we do on a regular basis now is photographic record of the work.
Yeah. Okay.
For the property file.
we don't want to
Yes.
be an end result being the you said business where somebody's saying, you said that it was okay. And,
Right,
and
and
the,
if
and the
we-
borough carries the burden of this problem. Let's say if there were a flipping episode or turnover of a home, this doesn't happen around here too much, I guess, but perhaps if it did.
No, but the data will be there so we can track when the last time it was done, to Kate's
Right.
point. So the only other question I had was, is when we talk about the infiltration, and we're estimating that it's coming from the laterals, are we estimating, or is that documented and we have data that says it's coming from laterals or it's coming from these particular areas? Do we have any more detailed breakdown of that information?
We stopped televising couple 4 or 5 years ago, and because we televised the borough several times in a 20-year time frame, and a lot of the areas that we had televised, we had done work on replacement and repairs. All right, and we were getting to the diminished return on the televising. We knew that we had problems and we weren't going to continue to keep going back and televising. So yes, we had televising done in the past, and it showed that laterals are a significant part of the problem. And that's why we made the concerted effort, especially like projects like East School Street. When we did that main replacement, we gave the residents the opportunity to get their work done at that time and pay the cost back over a year. So we're going to do the same thing on Orchard Lane. Orchard Lane is going to be done this year. We're going to do the same thing back there. When we do North Main Street, we're going to do the same thing. I'm sorry. We're going to propose, staff is going to propose to council that you do the same thing.
Right. I guess one of the things I'm looking at this too is wondering, is there more of a targeted approach? Do we know of specific areas that might be bigger problems and we'd want to focus on those first, versus just having this as a blanket ordinance that everyone must now do this, and sellers have to incur the cost? I mean, I get the idea of trying to mitigate the cost to everyone, but do we want to take more? Is there a way to take more of a targeted approach during areas that we think are problems versus a broad approach that just assumes that there's problems everywhere?
Well, that's why we went after grants on East School Street, Orchard Lane, and North Main Street, because they were the target problem. They were the problem areas.
And are there any other problem areas that we know of or that we think of are out there?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Market Street, East Broad Street, Maple Avenue.
So is there, so I guess my question is still the same thing. Is there more of a targeted approach that we could focus on with homeowners in those areas versus do this as a blanket across everywhere?
We could go back.
And the reason I say that, for example, my property is 20 years old, 25 years old. So most likely I may not have a problem here, but if I sell it, I still have to incur that cost versus someone's property out on Main Street or like Nan's old property, which is a lot older. And so there's more likely going to have a problem there. So that's why I'm asking should we consider more of a targeted approach in areas that we know are problems versus just a blanket approach to the entire borough?
In the time frame that we did all of the televising in the borough, the borough had problems almost on every main that we televised. Now, back in 2010, we had an Army Corps of Engineers project, and we did all of the main and laterals on West Vine Street. And then I believe we went up Edgewood Drive and Butler as well, and Bentwood, and redid the laterals and the the mains. They were sealed. They weren't replaced. Okay. So even with that, all that being done, when we went back and televised, there were still some problems, and we alerted residents that you have more than you have a larger problem on your property. So we have done the televising for 20 years, and it keeps telling us the same thing. The laterals are a major part of the problem all throughout the borough. And the ones that where we could get grants to do the work is what we approached first. Does that answer your question?
It does, but not really. So it does a little bit, I guess.
Let me
So
put it in a nutshell. There's the whole borough is a problem, except for the places where the mains have been replaced and the residences have agreed to fix their laterals.
okay. Again, I'm still stuck on this shotgun approach. If we know where the problem areas are, and granted, we may not have done the scoping within a few years, since it seemed as if it was more prevalent in previous years than it is now. We should be able to identify those properties and like I said, maybe put the ordinance on there that says any property that's identified as having a problem needs to be scoped and verified during sale versus just making it a broad approach that everyone must now do it. I guess, and maybe that's the too complicated approach, but I guess I'm just hung up on having every homeowner do this inspection, whether it's actually needed or not.
Do you think it would be difficult to write the ordinance if we tried to do it that way? Because I don't think that cracks in your lateral are something you necessarily even know exists. Unless it backs up into your house, you don't even realize that a tree in your front yard's growing through your sewer lateral.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be hard to define the area that was in as versus the area that's out, unless you can do it by everything west of Broad or something. But even that would be difficult to write an ordinance because people could complain it was unfair to people west of Broad,
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be tough unless we were able to, clearly define areas. And what Mike is saying is the whole borough has the problem.
And I'm assuming that this isn't an uncommon problem for municipalities. And I'm just, I guess I'm just wondering, is there another approach? So,
well, that's a good
sorry, I lost my
question.
train of thought.
And so because both Mike and Jamie are active in the consortium and otherwise, maybe they could talk to their fellow managers and see, paying particular attention to the boroughs because those generally have older housing stock, how they've handled it,
Can I
And-
ask a question?
put that into it.
It appears that this conversation has escalated. Well, the way I'm interpreting it, okay, is that it's affecting all people. I think the ordinance says that it has to do with the transfer of properties, etc. Did I miss something in this conversation? Are we going to have some sort of an inspection of the whole borough on all laterals?
Well,
Yeah,
we
the
could do that.
The ordinance
But-
is drafted to be due on sale.
Yeah, okay, so it's only on properties that are being sold. Now, my question also would be, how many properties are turned over? This is because it goes different year to year, and it really probably is different now in the current times we're in. But is there that much turnover in properties in our town that this conversation is, that seems to have expanded more so than just the transfer properties. If my question sounded right, I have no idea. I didn't get it out of my head right. I know that much.
Mike, do we know how much money we make every year in transfer?
No, I don't want to know money.
No,
I
no,
wanna know
I
how-
was thinking,
How many
we-
homes are
Well, that'll
sold?
identify the properties.
I was thinking we could use the transfer tax as a gauge of how many properties change hands.
Well, yes, we could do that.
What-
But
what-
that would be problematic in the fact that you don't know what each property sold for. So what I would do is I'll ask Diane to look back and see how many properties we received transfer tax for in 2020.
Right.
Right. Do we already do some inspections on sale, Mike?
We do inspections, but the lateral inspections.
Well, maybe we should count the number of inspections on sale we do,
Okay,
because those would be roughly the same number that would now need a
Right.
lateral inspection. Okay?
right.
Well, let's recap. I think we're hearing that everyone's feeling that this is a program that's needed. And we want to go forward. I agree that, do we want to spend the money to go back and start identifying sections of the borough and sort of getting ahead of the game while at the same time doing ones that are up for sale? And it's, a cost factor, and if we lead this way and say, let's get all the grants we can possibly get, which, as Mike said, that's the route we're trying to go. Let's keep pursuing it and doing sections that we can go back and look at the whole borough. But I think individually, we still need to look at the on sale route too. And let's find out the answer to how many properties that is per year.
I think it's a wonderful idea that we have the thought of even looking out. Well, we're looking out for the borough. I get that. But it's also, I don't know, kind of noble that you're looking out for the people that are buying a home as well. That they ain't stuck with, not like, I don't know, the old maid's card or something like that, that kind of a deal.
In addition to the municipality discussion, why don't we talk with a couple realtors that, quote, might be friendly, and we don't get them all excited about the fact of something else coming down the road for them to deal with. But let's find out if they have any thoughts too. Just input, or are they already facing this in certain places? I think that would be
Okay.
beneficial. I do have one specific question, Kate, on page 2. All these are at the bottom under transfer 18602. Yeah,
Right.
it specifically says seller of a residential property.
Right.
Apartments, commercial, why do we let them off the hook? I guess apartments are residential, but I think it should be residential, not limited to, including, whatever.
Especially,
I don't see any reason not to add commercial, Mike, do you?
No, I do not see any reason not to.
Okay, we can do that, sure. And in fact, I mean, although if you're buying a commercial property, it's something you might check anyway. They might have bigger issues, especially if you're like a laundromat or something.
Honey, what's your problem?
You can't say I'm okay.
Honey, I got things on.
You don't know, you said you can hear
Jamie,
your voice, but I
help.
didn't hear you nothing.
Amy, help.
You get me upset.
Honey, people are listening to you right now. Don't be a baby.
Just say,
Okay. Well, I think we
it's
got. a
live
lot more-
television.
more discussion going on, so.
Sounds like someone's in big trouble.
Let's keep it on the agenda. We're not ready to advertise, that's for certain, and see what the township, if the commissioners have voiced in with their comments, we can jointly go back and forth here. I agree. I think the process is important too, as far as the timing and turnaround and making sure we're not the reason that an agreement falls apart.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Let them know going into it what's required. That's why I think gotta let the realtors know everything right up front. All right. Everybody okay moving on? We'll keep talking about this, get some more answers to a couple questions that have been proposed. Anyone else have anything specifically that they wanted to address at this point though on the sewer lateral?
President Wyman, I think I see Sal talking, but I don't believe he realizes he's muted. I saw his mouth moving when you asked about questions.
Sal? You're muted, Sal. Sal, you gotta hit your mute button up at the top.
Let's see, let me
You
send him
should see a red line through it.
Jamie, can you unmute him?
Yeah, I'm seeing, oh, yes, I'm seeing if I can, I asked him to.
There we go.
Should do-
There you go. Thank you.
I'm
You're
on,
on, sir.
okay.
Yes.
I have a question, John, about, I can give you the name of a municipality that
Okay,
has this type of an agreement.
okay,
That is Plymouth Township.
okay, yep,
I went through with it when I had to sell my brother's property,
okay,
all right? And by the way, the cost of televising is not cheap.
Yep.
It's expensive. And the whole works, you're talking between 8,000 to 12,000.
Hmm.
Now, if someone comes up and sells their house as is, I guess, Kay, you're gonna have to answer that question. They sell the house as is. What's that got to do with the seller paying for the work on the lateral?
Well, you probably won't be able to complete settlement unless you either have a permit or you escrow money to take care of the issue. Now, if they televise it and there's nothing wrong, no problem, they get the permit. If they televise it and there is something wrong, it's going to require to have it fixed. I'm pretty sure the buyer's going to insist that it be fixed before they buy it. Maybe it's a negotiation the same way it is when they find radon in your basement.
Yeah, but the seller is selling it, the house as is.
that
Right.
means they're not gonna pay for anything, that's all.
Exactly.
Well, it doesn't mean they get a permit to sell,
Right.
they still have to get approvals to sell the
So he
property.
can't, so he won't be able to sell it as is.
No,
No, I
because
didn't
it's
go
not,
that way, but
No,
it's
he
because
could
it's
if
not
the
getting to the
buyer's willing
borough's
to pay for it.
standards.
Not going to be able to, the title company won't give you the deed unless they have all the governmental requirements satisfied. And one of the governmental requirements is going to be this inspection.
all right.
All right. Yep, as we said, let's get some more answers. There'll be more questions and we'll keep talking about it in 2 weeks. Okay. Item C, Resolution 2021-05 for our PMEA voting delegates. Now, this is just making the change, right?
Yes,
So I sort of have the same question I had on one of our other ones a month ago or so. It looks like the language talks about Borough Council hereby approves the proposed. Borough Council hereby accepts and approves the plan. Is it that from a prior resolution?
yes, it is. I can get that
So-
out of there if you want.
Yeah, either take it out or just say we continues or previously approved. Whichever's easier.
Okay,
So we're naming Jamie and Mike will be the alternate. Any other questions? Good.
John, you're okay with leaving the hereby authorizes to take any actions necessary? You're okay with that?
Where was that one?
It's down at the bottom under B, resolved, the second to the last, or the last resolved. Resolved that the officers are hereby authorized to do so or take any other actions as may be necessary, convenient, appropriate, or desirable to effectuate the implementation of aforesaid resolutions of Borough Council.
I don't see why not. Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Officers referring to,
PMEA.
right. Right.
All right.
Yep. Okay, we had good information on Montgomery County municipalities' tax rates for 2021. I think Hatfield had 17 municipalities less than our 2.25, but 17 out of the 67 total is 25%. So basically, we're still right at the first percent quartile in terms of where we stand with the group. And as you can see, there's a number that are much, much, much higher. So thanks for the information. I think the ones that are extremely low, a couple townships that have obviously lots of commercial or retail properties, although that might not be a good thing any longer. Anybody have any questions on that specifically that you focused on? And I was just looking at the municipality, not the total millage on that comment, by the way. I didn't bother with including the school districts, some of which bump that number up considerably too. A lot in the 30s and more, so North Penn's done a pretty good job. Alrighty. East Lincoln Avenue. We had the nice facade picture. And we also have our bid results, along with the letter from McMahon that was provided this evening.
That's on for an action item as well.
So when they say verified, all bidders were complete with their package, I take it.
Yes,
Great. I did go on, is it Jurich or Jurich?
Jorick,
Jurich, okay, AJ Jurich. I did go on their website, and they've done some major projects and work in this regard. They included some pictures, and they have a great portfolio customer list. A lot of different municipalities they've done work for. So good news is the bid amount. Now, did we have, like we had with the building construction? I don't recall in the bid specs, was there like an allowance type category or contingent category? Or
not in this, John.
Okay,
Now they have, they can substitute something if it's approved by the engineer. But it has to still meet the requirements of the contract.
okay,
Just to give you, for instance, like rebarb. They're gonna need rebarb. They might be able to, buy a certain kind of rebarb for concrete work on sidewalks and maybe aprons, driveway aprons that they might be working around. But the rebarb that's got to be reinforcement in the bridge abutments themselves, they have to utilize what's spec'd out in the job, in the bid specs.
right. Okay. Was this the facade design that's included on the photo we got?
Yes, that's included in the project. They just wanted to know what we wanted it to look like. So, and that's the one we selected.
Okay. And do you know offhand the height of the wall from the roadway?
Say that again, John?
Do you know what the height of the wall is above the roadway? This looks like it's pretty tall. The reason I ask, I know in the past when we had the other side on the bridge, we had talked about railings at one time.
Right.
This looks like it's pretty tall. That's why there's no railings on top of the wall itself.
And I
Assume-
believe that's one of the reasons why we did that, to
Yeah.
eliminate those railings that end up getting torn off and ripped off.
Looks good. Was there, I don't know if you could fill council in, was there particular items that drove up the bid prices for the last three contractors?
Uh,
You recall if there was,
I don't recall the particulars of the contract, but historically, they are they do a lot of big jobs, state work, Penndot work, Dot work. So that they're in a different field than someone like a Jorick. You know, and one of the questions, the first question I asked Chris Seaman is, you know, and not to be disrespectful to any one of these contractors, but you know, I'd never heard of Jorick before this. And I said, he's not like Joe's like can build the bridge guy, is he? And he said, no. They said, no, they actually do this kind of work. And now some of the companies I have heard of, you know, Dolly Construction, the H&K, Roadcon. I've heard of those companies before. Now the other companies that have a bigger price tag, I think they do work on larger projects.
Yeah,
They
it's
don't
good
do-
news for
they don't
us.
do- They don't do small work like this. And when people, when engineers and contractors say, you know, we don't, you know, a small job like this, and I'm like, this is not a small job. This is a
Right.
big job, you know. For them, it's not.
Good. Yep. Always nice to come in below budget. No other questions? Okay, on the next page. 461 South Main Zoning Hearing Board application.
I can take this one if you like.
Yeah, it's quite convoluted here.
Right. So Borough Council doesn't normally weigh in on for or against any zoning application. There's one exception to that rule. If you have strong feelings on something you want to see happen or don't want to see happen, then you normally either send a letter or send the solicitor, you know, to the meeting on your behalf. Because the zoning board is technically separate from you, has its own votes, does what it wants to do, and doesn't have to do what you tell it to do, but you do appoint the zoning board members, so they're going to care what you think about. On this one, it's a little different. If this were a straight code enforcement case, you would have to have the solicitor there because it works like the code enforcement officer becomes the prosecutor and has to make out a case for a code violation. And that's actually what happened here. Apparently, somebody applied for a sign and the zoning officer granted the permit believing it was a permitted sign. When the sign went in, it turned out it was not a permitted sign. It was a sign, not a changeable text sign like you might find outside the firehouse. It was a sign that is prohibited in the borough, and that would be an automated sign or something like that. So the zoning officer denied the permit for the sign because it was not what was represented or what was permitted. The property owner also refused to pay for the sign permit, and so it was denied on that basis as well. Now, if you are unhappy with the zoning officer's code enforcement action, your appeal lies to the zoning board. And that is what they've done. Or in the alternative, ask for relief so that they could have their sign. Now, you guys probably know this sign better than I do. I tried to look it up on Google Earth and couldn't find the new sign. But that's the situation. I actually believe the zoning officer did not ask me to do this. I actually believe he needs a solicitor there because I don't think he's going to know how to handle this from a legal point of view if he doesn't have a lawyer. And the zoning board's lawyer is not going to be acting for him. The zoning board's lawyer is acting for the zoning board and has to remain neutral. And the applicant does have a lawyer as well. So I'm asking you for you to authorize me to go to the zoning board and represent the zoning officer in the enforcement part of this. Now, if you don't care about the sign, that would be useful to know as well, so that we just support the code enforcement and don't take a position on a variance for the sign. I don't know whether you have feelings on that or not. By the way, in your first packet, the backup information was not included. So everything I just laid out for you is set forth in an addendum, which does appear in your updated packet that you got today.
Well, I guess the big question is, if we don't challenge it and let them keep the sign, what's that precedent for other signs in the future,
Right.
whether it be in this district or somewhere else?
It's going to say it's better to ask for permission, better to ask for forgiveness than risk asking for permission, and it won't matter anyway because you'll get what you want. So that is part of it, you know.
So Cato, I wasn't sure, was there a mistake made?
Apparently, and I don't know for sure how the applicant described the sign. He may have described it as a changeable copy sign. That's what I'm getting from, you know, what the zoning officer says. And in fact, we would call it an animated sign or something like that. We think of a changeable copy sign like the firehouse sign where somebody goes out. Well, they now have an animated sign, but they used to have a sign, and some of the churches do, where you go out there and you put the letters out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's internally illuminated, which they did say you can have an internally illuminated sign, but without getting special permission, you can't have a sign like the current fire company sign, which has the animated type and symbols and pictures coming and going. That's by special permission. And these people didn't ask for it, is what I understand.
Okay. I mean, would we have rejected it if they had asked for the kind of sign they put up?
We should have, because
Okay.
it's not permitted in the zone.
Why is that?
Because
It's only
we,
permitted in
you
commercial, core commercial.
wrote the ordinance that way. I remember when we were working on the sign ordinance, we were also working on special zoning for, I guess it's the core commercial area, where we were trying to keep the downtown kind of a hometown feel to it. And so we were going for more mixed uses, so that there might be a residence nearby that wouldn't want to be kept awake all night by a flashing sign or something like that. And so the sign ordinance was sort of written in conjunction with that whole effort. We had a planner. I'm trying to think who it was. It might have been Simone Jaffe or somebody like that. But we did
Simone Collins.
Simone Collins. We had a planner who was helping us. And that's why at the time we rejected the idea of these signs that people put up that have pulsating, you know, symbols and figures and things like that. And they were not permitted. I think the fire company did go to the zoning board to get its sign.
No, they came to Borough Council. It's by conditional use.
Okay, conditional use, sorry.
And even wood burners had come in and asked for the same type sign because they're in the core commercial as well. And he never even put one in, but he was allowed to do it as long as he followed the conditions set forth by council. This
And one of
never
the
went
conditions can be like turn it off at 10 o'clock or something, you know?
right. And it's my understanding this was presented as an illuminated sign.
Right. But an illuminated sign can just be a sign that has a light inside it
Exactly, backlit,
and not the same as,
internally lit.
right, as animated.
Kate, if the zoning hearing board approves the application, would they still need to get a conditional use from council?
I'll have to check the ordinance. It sounds as if they do. You know, they can appeal the code enforcement, but I think if that's the way we permitted the others, that's probably what the ordinance says.
Okay.
I would say, in response to John's comment, what does it say about the future of all signs? I would say it's open season for anybody else to do whatever they want. If something doesn't happen in a different way, if this person does get his way. It is a bright sign. I've mentioned that many times when it was on. It reminds you of one of those movies where the guy's sitting in his apartment or whatever, his rental room, and the big flashing light is flashing because I'm out at nighttime and it's like, holy smokes, this thing's bright. However, I guess, did I understand this right, that he's not allowed to have he can have an illuminated sign, but it shouldn't change?
I believe the problem is an animated sign versus a changeable copy sign.
Right. Well, his presently would be, I guess, considered changeable copy because it does anything it wants to. And it, I mean, and you look at the residents and you say, wow, it's bright now and it's not so bright. There's an apartment dwelling next door to it. And I would look, I said, wow, it's really bright now, but it's not. In about 30 seconds, it's switching. So that's considered and it does give out a message. So that's considered a changeable copy, but well,
No,
extremely illuminated.
No, it's considered an animated sign, and that's part of the confusion here.
All right.
It was billed as a changeable copy sign that was internally illuminated, but it turns out to be an animated sign.
So also, where is the responsibility as far as the zoning officer? Excuse me, what's the liability is what I want to say, not responsibility.
He's not liable if he makes a mistake, I do think it's a matter of, it's an issue for responsibility, meaning they can't sue him for the cost of the sign. And, if he makes an honest mistake, you can't sue a zoning officer for that. There's governmental immunity.
Well, what about if he's violating the ordinance of the signs? Okay, he makes an honest mistake, but what this is going to continue down the lane is if this stands, he has a sign in the end, let's say, everybody else in town's going to want to have to do the same thing.
Yes.
And it's going to be like, he got away with it. Where's that zoning officer? I want to talk to him. He's good at mistakes. I want to get my sign.
Right. I think that's a possibility. Well, that guy has that sign. How come I can't have that sign?
Exactly. So what's the outcome here?
I think I have to go with him to the zoning board and see if I can prove the code enforcement issue, which is that they didn't portray it accurately on their application.
And you have seen the application?
I have not. I asked Matt to get that together for me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would want to know too. That was my question. What did the application say?
Well, it's not even that. Sometimes an application is accompanied by a drawing or a picture or a manufacturer's brochure. I'd want to see if there was that included. Because that would show whether they mischaracterized the sign or whether we missed it,
Another question would be, is there, besides the zoning officer here, is there anybody else that's on staff that saw anything about this?
No, it would be the zoning officer's job to decide.
I mean, Mike and Jamie weren't involved in this, or?
Not to
Anything
my
else?
knowledge, and it wouldn't be their job anyway. If they were involved, it's the zoning officer's opinion under the law, which
Yep.
counts.
Yeah, but it's still an end result. I mean, whether it's not my job or whatever, or description, we
Well,
have somebody challenging us.
So
Yeah,
to
you
answer John's
hire-
question, to
You
answer
hire,
John's question,
Yeah, please do.
to answer John's question, Jamie and I became aware of it when it turned on.
Okay, that's what I figured too.
I was gonna second that and say I was aware of it when I walked outside and took a picture of it and sent it to the zoning officer saying, I don't think this is allowed in this district. And that's the first time I was aware of it. And I sent a picture and said that, and then the next day we had conversations about it.
so Jamie, the other thing I asked him to do was to go out and take a picture of it, but if you already have a picture,
Yeah, I have a lot on my phone because I took it the day it went up, and that's when I texted him a message saying, I believe this is not allowed in this district. I'm not the zoning officer, but I'm familiar with some of the stuff with the zoning ordinance, and that's why I texted that to him, but I can send you some pictures.
that's good. Thank you.
Sure.
Because I found it odd that there were no pictures in the zoning application. So anyway, I got two questions. I've heard some answers on some of them. One is, do you want me to go and defend the zoning officer's decision? And secondly, if we get past that, how do you feel about the sign? Should I fight the sign in general or what, you know?
I think the answer to both of those is yes.
Okay. Okay, thanks. That's all I need.
Is there a hearing date set yet?
No, the zoning board in Hatfield Borough meets so infrequently that they just schedule hearings when
Okay,
they need them, and they're in the process of doing that right now, Larry.
thank you.
I can report back on that when it's scheduled.
By the way, what was the total value of that sign? Do we have an amount on that? What the guy paid?
That is, if Jamie, if you can scroll down a little, it might be in the application. Because they did complain about that they had spent some money on the sign.
Let's see it.
All right, it may not be there. They make that argument, but I don't know that they put the exact cost in.
Was it like 10,000 or something?
No, I would have thought less, but I'm not a sign guy, so.
Oh, I would have thought at least 12 or more. Jamie, am I close?
I was thinking between 20 and 30.
Okay,
Ow.
I'm not close.
I was gonna say the electric itself was gonna run between 5 to 10 just for the electric, so,
Wow, okay.
They're a
so-
lot more expensive than you think.
yeah.
Oh.
Jamie, what was
So-
ours?
Well, all in with everything that we did. Our public works did some of the
That's right.
legwork.
That's right,
So-
okay.
So
Right.
the
Yeah,
question,
good luck.
if it comes down to, all right, I'll put up the correct sign, to your standards, but this is one of those things don't go your way topics. But you're now responsible for the bill of my sign that I put in. Can that happen?
I don't believe that can happen. I believe
Because
that unless the zoning officer did something deliberate, he's protected by governmental immunity.
Is there liability insurance on those guys too?
We have liability insurance on everything the borough does.
All right. But, so he goes under the umbrella of our insurance policy. It's not like that agency has to supply insurance for him.
Well, they may supply insurance for him, so there may be two policies applicable. I'm just saying the borough has the divot insurance company for any liability.
Well, yeah, because what I'm saying is the end result is, okay. You're responsible for the sign damages if I spent 20 or 30, if it's that high. And by the way, with that money, I get my money back and I'll buy that cheap sign that you want in there. You know,
I don't believe that is the law, even if we lose.
Okay, item G is filling a slot perhaps on the pool advisory board with Steve Sweet.
Very good.
You guys aren't going to harass me to get my wife to join?
How many slots we have? Take 3. So
Will they be
we,
will they be open this year?
we have to
They are.
actually put this
Good.
in as action, right? Next meeting
Yes.
to officially approve it. Okay. Very good.
I believe they are going to be open. I thought Lindsay had did something that said, but they're going to have they're going to have capacity limits. So once they reach their capacity limits, they're not going to let anybody else in. And there'll be no deck chairs, but you can bring your own chair and sit in the grass area.
Hmm.
So there's going to be some rules and regulations.
Right.
And I don't think they're going to be selling any day passes either.
So it'd be
Yeah.
exclusive to the residents? Is that what that means? To the area?
I'm not sure. You know, John,
that what-
let me
Is
go
that what
back.
day passes
Let me
mean?
go back and pull up the communication, and then I'll get it out to everybody. All right.
Sounds good. Okay, 8A, we know that we don't have feedback from Planning Commission yet. So is there anything else to highlight at this time, other than what we're going to do in 10A? Jamie, were you successful in getting a hold of the developer?
Jamie did.
Yes, I got a hold of Mr. Hurling. He had responded earlier today, and then he's the one that said he reached out to the planning commission, got no call back, then copied an email, and I believe his lawyer copied Kate, and that's how it came about, where he would like this tabled for this evening, in hopes that the planning commission letter will be back by the 17th, so it could be on for approval.
In the meantime, you have a draft in your packet, so anybody can read through it. Let me know if there's something that needs to be changed or added or something. That'd be fine too. That's assuming the planning commission doesn't have anything that we haven't already considered.
Yeah, I still have the same question, and I was waiting to hear if the planning commission addressed it. I still don't believe it's North Gerard Terrace. I think it's just North Gerard. But we'll wait and see, I guess, legally what they come back with, if they would address that topic.
You never know, they can.
The other properties he owns, when you go to Montgomery County property records, is North Gerard Avenue.
If it's a borough street, the borough council gets to name it.
No, it's already named.
Okay.
And it's known as Gerard Avenue. And the other one is South Gerard Terrace. It's not even North John. In the tax duplicate, it's Gerard Avenue.
Okay. So 1A, Kate, you want to take out North Terrace,
We will.
put in Gerard Avenue?
Yep.
Great. Should we be reaching out to the planning commission to assist the developer, or you said their attorney did reach out? We don't have to also do that. That's not our job.
The zoning officer did, code enforcement officer did reach out Tuesday.
Great, okay. Thank you. Hey, that was the only old business. Anything on reports? Including detailed Public Works Department report recapping all the snow events. Thank you very much. Was there anything in Chad's report different? Assuming that's in here, I'm not up to it yet. Taking me a while to get to it.
Chad actually just brought you up to speed on the developments, and then the roadway projects, the projects that are out for bid under his jurisdiction.
Okay.
One of the things that we did, Jamie and Steve and I did talk with Chad regarding the PA small water and the H2O PA program. So even though those projects, they have to be completed by June of 23, Jamie?
Yes, both of them are June 2023.
So Chad's going to start all the engineering packet work this year, hopefully have it bid out early in 2022 to get it underway, because that's going to be a major project. And we're also meeting with Penndot. Penndot was scheduled to pave East Broad Street this year. So we're trying to set up a meeting with Penndot. They asked them to push that back to after we get done our work on East Broad Street, so that we're not ripping into their new pavement, and that they want to let us do anyhow. So they've agreed to meet, and we're hoping that, you know, then rather than us being responsible for the final paving, just do restoration work and let them come back and do the mill and overlay, and then have a nice clean surface there when we're done.
That'd be nice.
Yes.
Great. No questions on any reports?
I have a question. This has to do with the trimming of the trees.
Yes.
Uh,
Good one.
And it says, after review of the project, it gives the amount, and then it says 17 full removals, 16 trims, remove all wood and chip all brush. What is 17 full removals and 16 trims referred to? What does that mean? I know what it sounds like. I read it out loud, but what are we referring it to?
Which one is that in? Which
I don't know. It's in the paperwork from
Jafflo?
Ars Corp. And it was, it said, "Dear Mr. Fickert."
So there's some trees that are some are in the right of way and some are on private property, that are ash trees. And hey, Kate, what's the name of that specimen that,
The emerald ash borer.
yeah. So that emerald ash borer is killing these trees.
So that's the
So Ralph-
17 removals?
Excuse me?
Is that the removals of
Um,
those ash borers
yes,
or ash trees, excuse me?
yes. So if you look at the three proposals, one of them is to do the same thing, remove dead and declining trees. That's from 12 properties as marked. And then the other ones identified some other trees that they would look at removing. But we're looking at the ones that are in the right of way, and we'd have to look at getting a letter out to those that are not in the right of way to private property owners and ask them if they want us to remove their dead or dying trees. And if they do, they'd have to give us the permission to do so. But
Okay.
that project is just under $19,000 from the one contractor to do that work.
Yeah, I was looking at this one. It had a bit, it says proposal 31,200.
Right. That's Jafflo.
Yeah.
So we would probably go with the 18,922 project, and then communicate with the residents that we had to get permission to remove those. If they don't want us to remove them in this project, we'll just inform them that they're your responsibility now. When they come down and take down our power lines, you're going to incur that cost as well.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was like a total involvement of the borough or specific targets. And
It
it is specific targets.
Yes, these were identified as these trees that have this emerald borer ash borer that are dying.
Right.
Actually, I have noticed that Pico, which uses Asplund, has gone around taking down these trees wherever they're in the right of way, because they have a tendency apparently to fall down without warning. So
Yeah, I had an ash tree on my property, came home one day and was leaning up against the secondary. And of course, you know, that this was 30 some years ago. So I took out the electric saw and cut it off at the base. Of course, it fell back on my property, and looking back on it, it wasn't the brightest thing I ever did. You know?
So protecting your secondary became your primary concern. Yeah, I could see the logic there.
So, yeah, Kate's right. They just have a tendency just to fall over on their own. No wind, calm, clear day. This emerald borer ash cleans them up pretty good. All right.
Yes, thank you. Moving on.
Steve, all the equipment's in good working order after all this work in February? You're muted. Still muted.
Sorry
There
about
you go.
that.
Okay.
No, yeah, all the equipment's still holding up good. We got a few pieces that we're waiting on parts for, but nothing's really pending right now. Everything's still operational.
Great. Okay. Now, hopefully the plows, blades stay off the equipment for the rest of this winter.
Yeah, I think that's everybody's hope.
Any update on timing of the new vehicle?
I think we're still looking around the June timeframe.
Okay.
I haven't heard from the Ford dealership on whether the cab chassis come in yet. They got to get it in first, then it has to go to the upfitter to have the utility body and all the accessories put on. But I think we're probably looking in probably around the May timeframe of when that's going to come into the Ford dealer. So we still got a little ways away.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we ready to hit action items? A was the motion for considering resolution 2021-04 on a preliminary plan. Do I have a table?
Move to table.
Yeah. Second,
Motion by Counselor Stevens. It's been seconded. No other action necessary, so we'll table that for 2 more weeks. Hopefully have solid information by then. Second is motion to consider approving the award of the East Lincoln Avenue Bridge Project to AJ Jurett
I'll make the motion.
in the amount of $964,117.
I'll make the motion.
Second,
second it.
Motion by Counselor Cresser, second by Counselor Delicio. Any questions?
No.
Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion's approved. Thank you. We have executive sessions scheduled on
Yes, we do.
real estate. Okay.
Make a
Have a-
motion to adjourn. Wasn't there a pool advisory thing we had to do
Next meeting.
next meeting? All right, a
Yes.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, good night, everyone. Have a
Good
good
night, Jane.